Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second weekly workshop. Tonight, we're featuring esports veteran Peter Dagger, as well as OG Nouner Brennen Peters. This workshop is designed to focus on bringing esports on-chain. We're excited to shine some light on how Web3 is helping DAOs do things differently, such as by helping esports teams unlock new fan engagement and profit opportunities while opening their IP. My name is Tina, and I'm your host for tonight. I am on the UETH core team, and my background is mainly focused on early stage investing, most recently at a crypto fund. And prior to that, got my career started in product and strategy. So tonight we will be starting with a panel discussion for the first part of the session, where Brennan will shed some light on DAOs. Then we'll move into Peter's talk, and then into a Q&A session where we'll bring a few students on stage to ask their questions. So as a reminder, this conversation is recorded. If you have any questions, please feel free to join us in our Discord and drop your question in our general channel. Any follow-up questions we don't address tonight, we can get an answer to you asynchronously. And at the University of Ethereum, we generally believe in this philosophy of learning by doing. So I really challenge you all who's listening today to reflect on how you can make a tangible difference by using the knowledge that you'll be gaining today. So for our speakers tonight, we have Brennan, who is joining us as our blockchain expert for the evening. Brennan has been building in Web3 since its first startup in 2010, and he is a OG Nouner and founder of Nouns Esports. So Brennan, I would love if you could share a quick background about yourself, your path in crypto, and what you've been up to in this space.
I think it started, I graduated with an economics finance degree, but I was really into computer science, like as a kind of a minor and just building video games on the side. And yeah, I ended up working for Booz Allen. And during that time, I had to wait 3 months to get my secret clarity, like clearance. And I started just looking at, things that were happening around me, different startups that were building, and realized that that's what I wanted to be doing instead. And so I quit with two other colleagues, and we started sort of building like an eBay competitor. And that's when we realized we didn't want to use sort of PayPal because it was expensive. And we realized, we should go look for a different digital currency. And, I was on Hacker News all the time, and they posted, obviously a lot about Bitcoin. So found the white paper, read it, was super inspired, and we started building on the Bitcoin wallet client. And that sort of got me going into not only the startup world, but also, electronic payments and crypto in general, and sort of stuck with that, building on crypto all the way through, the pre-sale Ethereum when they dropped the Geth client, and building in Solidity all the way up until what I'm working on today. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but really fun.
Amazing. Well, we're excited to hear more about what you're doing nowadays. But in the meanwhile, wanted to introduce Peter Dagger, who's here with us tonight as well. He is a Dota 2 TI champion who has played in front of millions of people under the name Peterpandam. Would love if you could, Peter, tell us a bit more about your gaming career and what you're up to now.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. My name is Peter Dagger, better known as Peterpandam. I started my esports journey way back in 2011 when I qualified to a Heroes of New Earth competition at DreamHack Winter in Sweden in 2011. I used all of my lawn mowing money I made in high school to buy the flight to Sweden to compete. And even though we lost in the group stage and didn't get any money, I was hooked on the culture surrounding esports competitions to this very day. In 2015, I won the world's biggest esports tournament, the International, in Dota 2. And in 2017, I became the CEO of my esports team, Evil Geniuses.
Awesome. Well, now the audience knows a bit more about you both. Let's dive right in with the first part of our discussion, which is a primer on DAOs. So for the next 10 to 15 minutes, Brennan will speak more on the DAO funding model and highlight a few projects and their impact, and give you a glimpse of how to get involved. So I'm going to bring Brennan to the stage and have him do a quick presentation on DAOs and more.
Yeah, so obviously DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organizations. And the idea behind them, it's different for each DAO. And there's different levels for how a DAO is like kind of on-chain or not on-chain. And if you look at Nouns, I consider Nouns one of the most on-chain DAOs, where the voting participation is done, every day. So every day we release a new vote, and as a vote holder, you can participate in putting up proposals to do things with the treasury or on chain in general, using the Nouns treasury as a mechanism to do so. And you have to auction or pay money in an auction format to be able to claim that vote token, which is these cute little Nouners, these little Noun dudes with their noggles, these guys. And everything is on chain. So there is no off chain system. There is no sort of governance that just looks at the votes and says, okay, this is what they wanted to vote. We're going to go implement that. There is a legal foundation that runs it behind. But the idea is that the vote holders themselves are the ones in command of the ship. And it makes really interesting phenomenons then in terms of like, what is the purpose of the DAO and what do people want to work towards together? Obviously, if everyone has different ideas of what they want to get done, there's going to be conflict and nothing will get done, right? And I think Nouns has really found very quickly that the idea is to proliferate the meme of these noggles, like make the brand so ubiquitous. And our example is like every asset is CC0, so it's free use, free, free whatever distribution, whatever you want to do with it. There's no rights or restrictions that go with it. And with that, our goal is to just do really awesome things and fund really novel things and charitable works as well that just make people think about like, oh man, this was funded by Nouns. WTF is Nouns, right? And that's kind of like our front page, nouns.wtf. And one of the things that DAOs do in general is this idea of how do you bring different people, different ideas and backgrounds and ideologies, and kind of throw that around like off to the side and like just socialize amongst each other as a way to come to consensus on what to do with the treasury or whatever they have, going on in that DAO. And there's always been some really interesting DAOs, like the Constitution DAO, right? They brought money together to buy the Constitution. They failed to do so, but they had an attempt. And there's a lot of funny, silly DAOs like that, where Nouns is funny and silly in its own right, but it sort of succeeded, I think, where a lot of else have failed, because our mission was actually so broad that it was like, no, let's not just put our money to go do one thing. Let's put our money together to do a whole bunch of things and get people really excited about Nouns. And I think we started to really showcase that over the past couple of years. So one of the big mechanisms for funding is, we started with just proposals. If you own a Noun, which is the voting token, you can put up a proposal. And that proposal then goes on chain and then people vote for it. Like that's one mechanism to get money. And that proposal could just be like, okay, give me, 10 ETH to go do this charity thing. Right. Where we showcase noggles and we give gifts to kids or something like that. But the problem is that whole on-chain time to governance is a very slow model. So we started playing around with new models called Prop House, where could we fund these sub communities in which they have a purpose. So we'll issue a prop house for different verticals. Let's say one of them is charitable. So let's say we're going to do a prop house. We're going to fund it with 50 ETH, and we're going to do 10 different charitable events at 5 ETH each. And then people can come and vote on those, and they're much faster. So they're not like these heavy-handed proposals. They're much easier, softer to sort of make the proposal for the builders, and you can turn that around really quick. One of the problems was that there was so much attention, or you needed to pay attention to see all the different proposals coming out, that it was really hard to it's not my day job to kind of look at all the Nouns proposals. I wish that'd be really fun to just like talk to creatives and builders and get their stuff passed. But I don't get paid to do it. So it's kind of out of my goodwill or, my ability to want to contribute to the DAO. So what we sort of looking at is not enough voters are going to the prop houses and submitting their votes for all these different sort of really quick proposal schemes. So instead, we've moved to this gardener model where we will actually delegate our votes by voting in gardeners. So there's a certain amount of gardeners who are sort of the champions of these new prop houses, and they will be the ones that pick which proposals get passed. And so that we're on our Gardener Nouns round 3, something that we're going to talk about later, and hopefully that you as students can potentially participate and create a proposal. Even regardless, even if you don't think you're going to get chosen, it's still just a really fun process to go through the motions, to just come up with something creative or stupid or silly or giving, and like see if it gets passed. You never know what maybe a random thought in your head excites a lot of people in the DAO. So yeah. And then here's like a really cool use case. This was a proposal that put up to really pay for a Christmas party for 5,000 kids in need, right? And this is over in Australia. And it was like one of those really special things where, when you deal with children, Nouns already a very fun and playful avatar, and the noggles are so prolific and like kind of cool, and you can put them on everything. And then obviously you're giving kids gifts and you're having a party. It's like one of the best things to do, right? Is like show kids, show them, Christmas is awesome. Here's a good time, even if they weren't, they're going through difficult times. So these are one of those proposals that when they get put up, they just fly. They're off the shelf, funded pretty quickly. And what they did is like, they came to us, they hadn't put up a proposal before. They were brand new. They socialized it. You find different Nouners that are interested in the cause. This one was pretty interesting. I feel like everyone was interested in this one. And you talk and get sort of this off-chain sort of everyone's nodding your head like, oh, this will definitely pass. And they put it on chain, and it passed, and the money went directly to them. And this is on chain, so you can request from Nouns stable coin or ETH that you can take, and obviously go through off chain like ramps to get it off into cash if you need to. And then I think going over some of the really, really big stuff we've done. And this is just like a highlight of a few things. There's some big ones too, but like the Rise of Bluff is a full Nouns movie. So we're trying to compete, or the studio is trying to compete with Pixar. And obviously to get to a Pixar level film requires lots and lots of money. So they were like, hey, can we build you a pilot, a Nouns pilot, where Nouns is the focus of the movie, and we want to fund our amazing team of writers, creatives, actors, voice actors, all that kind of stuff, right? And they put it on the pilot, and it was amazing. And so we just funded them for 3 new extensions on that pilot. And we've already funded them almost $3 million, and we still have, everyone's excited to keep funding them more because every result has been better and better. Another really big one is Mucho Love is what I consider one of these like sub communities that come together and say, hey, we want to do a bunch of really awesome stuff in our community. They're based in the Dominican Republic in South America. And so they come to get funding to do a whole program of things, which is really easy because then they don't have to keep coming back to Nouns DAO and be like, oh, we need money for this one thing or this one thing. We're like, hey, give us 50 ETH and we're going to, go do all these awesome things over the course of 6 months or a year. And they've done some amazing charitable work in their communities. Another really small one is obviously the noggles on the face, like just getting the actual 3D printed ones. This is another version of them called Nouns Vision that got funded. Nouns Coffee. For about a year, it was only drinking Nouns coffee, and it was really good. And then obviously the Nouns GG, the Nouns Esports, being able to come together and develop a program and do something completely different than any other orgs out there, and fundamentally having incredible success. All of the teams that we had brought on have done far better than they were when we picked them up about a year ago. And it's been tremendous to see, their success as individuals, as athletes in the space, but also as other orgs starting to look at what we're doing and hopefully taking, a little bit of suggestions in terms of like how to create a transparent and a pretty equal, participation from the teams and the players and the owners. So again, Nouns Garden round 3. After this call, we're going to go and have this tavern, which is sort of this agnostic web spaces. And I'll be there. So will Rachel as well. And we're just going to talk about how to put up a proposal. Obviously anyone from the students can come up and ask questions. And we'll try to get going on proposing to Nouns.
Awesome. Thank you for that talk, Brennan. I think one thing that is a very different approach that Nouns takes is when people think of ownership, it typically really means like equity ownership in people's minds. But in this scenario, it sounds like you're basically giving your IP away for free, allowing people to co-create with it. And in that way, it's becoming a shared ownership of the brand and the brand equity, which is really interesting.
Exactly. It's like, take what Nike does, and obviously Nike wants to put their swish on every famous athlete, right? That's equity to them, and that benefits the owners. Where we would love to have it, where every possible athlete, whether you're good or you're bad, whatever type of event, has a Noggles on your jersey or even on your shoes. That feels great to us, right? That's the type of proliferation and the type of sort of I would say more democratic view of how to share a brand with the world.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that context. So now we are passing it over to Peter, who is advising on the Nouns Esports initiative that Brennen founded. And he is also building his own Dota League under this Nouns way of almost brand and community ownership. And so Peter is going to give us a quick talk about his journey into esports, some of the challenges he saw along the way, and how he views Web3 as bringing benefits to esports.
Sure. Thanks, Tina. So if you guys don't know, which I'm pretty sure most people do, but esports are competitions around the most popular video games. It really exploded in popularity as I was, reaching my 20s because of the improvements to the internet, which enabled competitions to be more frequent rather than solely in person. Many of these esport leagues have grew massively in popularity, and now they're almost imitating professional sports leagues like the NFL or the NBA. We have professional players, coaches, support staff, and corporate teams backing the businesses behind them. And yeah, why are they so cool? Why am I so into them? That's because they're really easily accessible and incredibly inclusive. Regardless of your physical attributes, anybody can play, male, female, tall, short, skinny, fat. As long as you have a device and a connection, you can be on equal footing with just about every single person in the world, which is why I think esports, in the next generation, 20, 30 years from now, I think it's going to be bigger than everything else by far. And because of this, the world's biggest esports communities are international, and they unite people around the globe through their shared hobby. So these gaming communities, even though they're decentralized and spread across the globe, they're larger than some countries, as a matter of fact. So esports captivates audiences with their esport players, and the competitions captivate their audiences because of their exceptional skill, which has been developed through years of practice, much like professional sports. So when you watch these competitions, and maybe you also play the games, you can truly understand like the amount of work and effort and practice that has gone into these, which makes you value what you're watching on the screen that much more. So each game that you're watching is like its own little story where split-second decisions are being made in real time, just like professional sports. And this blend of skill, strategy, and storytelling is what makes it such a spectacle at times, if the competition's good. So my journey with Nouns Esports, I discovered Nouns through their Dota team in spring of 2022. And I was just trying to figure out, I was intrigued by their operations. I wanted to know more about them. I wasn't really into crypto at the time, but because of my interest in Nouns, and as I started digging in, I was able to make all of these parallels through my lens of esports to learn about the potential of crypto. So Nouns Esports really helped intro me to the potentials of crypto and tokenization. Now, Brennan spoke a little bit about this, but a token's ethos, or what it means, is often sort of ambiguous, but at the end of the day, it's really a reflection of its holders. So whatever these Nouns DAO members or the holders are voting on, that's kind of what they become known for. And this can be applied to any specific culture, like esports or professional sports, or any kind of little subset community. And by tokenizing these pieces of culture, it creates a tradable product, which allows it meets the needs of fluctuating fandom, which is that waning interest that goes in and out. Not everybody can dedicate constant time to being a fan. Real life often takes center stage over your favorite hobbies, but in your spare moments or your difficult periods, people tend to fall back and seek solace in what's familiar to them, which is often, their their culture of interest, and for me, video games. And these companies are looking to operate in the space, need to be able to take advantage of that waning interest, which I believe can only be done, or can only best be done, through crypto. So I helped out with Nouns Esports. I kind of led, I would say, like, I sort of led our Prop House initiative and kind of got that off the rails and sort of helped onboard a lot of fringe users to crypto for the first time. It allows anybody to submit a proposal, and then we, Nouns Esports voting community, voted on whether or not it should be funded. We supported a lot of players and contributors at the very beginning of their esports careers, because believe it or not, if you're not familiar, it's actually really tough to sort of find entry into this industry. There's a lot of nepotism, and there's not really great sort of paths to, I want to work in esports. But with Prop House, anybody can submit a proposal. So we've sponsored the big ones. We've sponsored 2 different Smash Melee events. We sponsored a NBA 2K team, and we just recently picked up a female Counter-Strike 2 team, which we're all pretty proud of. Going back into what I'm doing, I used to run a Dota 2 league back in 2018, 2019. It was an amateur semi-professional league. And back then, everybody only really thought of monetization through sponsorships. And that doesn't really work for a product that doesn't really see large viewership. However, after my time with Nouns Esports, I was really sort of re-inspired to revive my Dota 2 league because of what I believe that crypto can help address. Now, this league, it's more than just a competition. It's like a dynamic platform for Dota enthusiasts to share their passions, and it aims to empower contributors to sort of channel their spare and their energy and free time into one of their greatest passions, Dota 2. So as we kind of look towards 2024, I'm very confident in the league's potential for growth and the legacy that we're creating. And I really, hope that Nouns Esports can continue to sort of have influence and partner with, my league to sort of grow it in the, I think esports is maybe meant to succeed at a more horizontal level rather than the vertical professional level it exists at the moment. And there's not enough people working on that because it isn't really the sexiest product. But I do believe that it's very important as we move into this like next generation of esports fans, that we have this sort of amateur, semi-pro, path to pro systems better developed. And I think, yeah, it's tough to do without sort of better digital products, which I think crypto and NFTs are starting to address.
I love your framing of esports and how your lens of esports ethos is aligned to the crypto ethos of sort of distributed ownership and the community making things making the community effort making things be the culture that they desire. And I think one thing you're touching on almost, it sounds like you're correlating esports players and esports enthusiasts as almost like artists. And what Nouns Esports is effectively doing is offering a avenue like NFTs did for artists and creators to be able to make a living or have a side income to support their passion. And that, I think, is a super powerful concept. But now that you've shared a bit more about what you're tackling with the esports team, we're going to move towards the brainstorm and Q&A section of our workshop. So I'm going to monitor some community questions in our Discord, and in the next 10 minutes or so, we'll start bringing up some students to ask some questions to you live. But in the meanwhile, so it sounds like Brennen and Peter, you're both working on Nouns Esports together. Would love to know how you're collaborating together on esports and what's on your roadmap.
I would say Peter's the pragmatic one. He comes with, probably the most insight into the esports world, obviously being not only a pretty much, the best in the world at one point, but also a team owner. So I come in as a super fan. I'm not actually in esports. I was never good enough at video games. I'm just good enough to feel good against my friends, but against the rest of the world, I'm pretty bad. I'm just like a super fan. And then obviously I come from the very heavy crypto side. So, I think we work in tandem. And then there's another head, which is Sasquatch, who kind of blends both worlds. He's very crypto, very esports as well, being a pro StarCraft player, ex-pro StarCraft player. So three of us, I feel like, have a very good paradigm of like where our thoughts are coming from. And then mine specifically, I really try to focus on the alignment with the brand, right? Like, how do we get as many people wearing Noggles in any form or fashion anywhere, and just having esports be just a lever to do that? Where I think, I'll let Peter talk to himself. I think he has better visions than mine. Mine feels so simple.
No, Brennan's great. He's super Nounish. We were just at a big tournament, the International in Seattle, and Brennan was running around throwing Noggles at everybody trying to get into the space. So he was, hey, you get a pair of Noggles, and people loved them. That's like, that's just the funny glasses to everybody, and they don't associate it with like crypto or NFTs or anything. So we have a lot of really great positive momentum going on for an esports organization where, if you're familiar with the industry, it's facing a lot of backlash and turmoil at the moment. There's a lot of people, even in tech, right, that are, losing their jobs, and esports is, right there alongside them. Publishers are, their interest is waning in sort of subsidizing all of the leagues, and many of the esport teams never really took the time to develop products along the way. They were more so trying to like gain market share of fan attention through, signing the best players. And that led to a lot of inflation around player salaries, and the whole system was pretty unsustainable. And I don't think anybody had a really great plan for turning it all around. So in a world of bankruptcies left and right, we're kind of, we're dreaming about the future and, what we think it's going to look like. So I'd like to think that we're like the second wave of a little bit more pragmatic. I, like Brennan said, I lived through it. I've been in esports since 2011. I was a player. I got to enjoy the bull market of esports, so to say. And coming out the other end of it, I just think I've got a lot of experiences and knowledge about, what is real and what isn't. And I think that we're, very well positioned to sort of build a community around an IP that supports esports.
Amazing. So it sounds like the major core difference between Nouns Esports and other models in some ways is the open IP approach. And a lot of the ways you run your operations via or supported by crypto is because all these proposals are on chain. And I guess I would love to kind of understand some of the innovation you've seen with a open IP approach relative to something you didn't see in your Web2 days. And you can maybe highlight an example of a proposal or something proposed by the community to further illustrate this idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think, everyone who comes in, we have an open call every Friday. And new people come in, they introduce themselves, and they talk about what they're passionate in relative to gaming and what they want to see happen. And let's just take the latest one, was this CS2 girls team. They were like the most diligent, articulative, like everything you would ever want to know about their history on socials, how much they've made, what their positions were, like how they've done in the past, like so outlined. And it was transparent. Anyone could go and like look at that proposal and say, hey, they're asking for X, Y, and Z, and this is what they're offering, and here's what their history is. You can't get that's like, to us, that's like the contract, right? There's no real right. It's like this social contract of transparency and openness. And anyone could go back and look at how much we've raised from Nouns and what we've paid our players. And so there's this cool provenance of like what we're doing, what are the type of agreements we make, and what we're capable of doing with those players and teams. And so I just think it's very novel, where if you did the research, you could go and get every insight about our org that you would want. Like, we don't keep anything secret, and we're trying to even be more forward, because obviously there's always side conversations and side DMs, and we're actually focusing this year on moving all of those to be even more public if we can. Obviously, there's some few things that we can't, but like as much as we could, we should be talking about it in public.
And how about you, Peter? We'd love to understand something you've just found impressive from having this open, transparent conversation on chain and building on chain.
Yeah, I'll steal this from Sasquatch, the other founder. He says it really well, but he says like the blockchain and the transparency, like that's our superpower. So as Brennan said, like you can see how much money we ask for, and then you can actually see where it all goes. You can see how much our players get paid for. You can see how much money we allot to our graphic designer that month, how much goes to our social media manager. And I believe that a lot of the future of esports is through crowdfunding or communities supporting, the culture of their choice. And I don't think that other esport teams that have, a big fat C-suite are going to be able to justify the spends of the money that comes into them. And therefore, I don't feel like they'll be able to crowdfund in the same capacity that we will be able to. Just to go off on another sort of thing that was pretty novel, and just to go back to Prop House, like Brennan said it well, like we're really flipping the script on esport players. For the last 10 years, it was really esport teams chasing players and trying to sign them to compete on their behalf and just to get their IP out there in these big competitions. And that kind of created a very tumultuous relationship between all of the parties that are involved. And that would be the esport teams, their sponsors, and then the players. So the esport teams, they have to ask the players to do things that their sponsors are asking for them to do. And the esport players, all they really want to do is just play the game. So now the esport team has to upset the player because they don't want to upset the sponsor. And then the sponsor, they don't want the players to be upset with them for asking them to do those things. And with Prop House, we get the players to say, hey, what are you going to do for us? And that way we never really have to get into this position where we're arguing about the deliverables on the contract. They either do what they're going to do or they don't. And if they don't, their communities are going to hold them accountable, I think. And they'll have a hard time sort of securing funding in the future, definitely from us, but also from other esport teams that, have this sort of on-chain record of how accountable are they.
Yeah, I love that idea of incentive alignment, which, and it also seems like because people are committing to something they want to be doing on chain, you're right, like the incentive for them to actually carry through and follow through is a lot higher than if it was a tops down type centralized decision-making conversation. Well, great. I would love to ask a couple other questions, but after that, we'll start bringing on the students. So this model of bringing esports on chain is super novel. It sounds like you're basically enabling fan co-creation and participation in team direction. Can you maybe give examples of other attempts where other either sports have been brought on chain, or maybe we can think through something like, is it possible to bring a different sport on chain, something like pickleball or
The Green Bay Packers has the fan-owned stock. Like you can. So my family is a huge Green Bay Packers family. My grandfather played in '54 for Green Bay Packers, so like they all own stock and they talk about it and they go to the shareholders meeting out there. I don't ever go, but they love it, and so that is the closest thing I've seen. I think in a more at a grand scale for people's participation. Now, I don't think they make much big decisions or even small decisions. I don't even know what they're allowed to vote on, but I think you could start to see a lot more organizations try to take this approach because one, it creates super fans, right? If your fans own your product, they're going to have buy-in and they're going to love it more than just being a spectator.
right, skin in the game.
And yeah, absolutely. And that's proven time and time before, right? Like skin in the game matters. And so I think you'll start with the fungibility and the protocol layer of smart contracts. It just makes it that much easier to manage the overhead, where before managing the overhead of keeping track of, ownership certificates and shareholder and the legal, like what are the legal rights of everyone was just very difficult. But now that, contract code is law in a way, then you can just execute as you need to and operate that way. So I think, as you say, pickleball could be a very interesting one. Another bull market sport that's going on right now. I see new courts being built literally every day.
Right. Yeah. I think this concept of community ownership, I've seen it done in a few ways. Like you mentioned Constitution DAO, for instance, where everyone sort of paid some grassroots dollar amount donation to be able to try to win the bid on the Constitution. I think something similar with Links DAO, where they bought an NFT and now own a golf course. But I love this idea of can we think about ownership in the form of not just equity ownership, but also fan co-creation and participation in a culture of choice, as you say it, Peter. Well, awesome. I think let's start bringing some of our students up for questions, and then I'll monitor the Discord for additional questions. We can have Valerie up first.
Hi, Valerie here, representing the San Diego chapter, San Diego NFT Friends. I have two questions. My first question is, what are some of the goals and objectives you guys have for your esports in 2024? And then my second question is actually, I have a connection here to the San Diego Unified School District. A lot of the students cross the Mexican border just to come to school. And so they're an underserved population and would love to give them more opportunities. And they actually have a new esports department for this district. So I would love to see if there are any opportunities for these youth. They're under 18, like if there are opportunities for them to join. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I'll tackle the first part. Peter, you want to tackle the second part? So the first part being, I think our big goals, one of our internal goals was like, let's just make an impact in terms of our performance. Like, let's fund some teams and let's get them ready and give them everything they need to be very successful. And we've did that far better than we thought we would, right? Just making it to the international with our Dota team was success, and then they took 7th, 8th place, right? Which is incredible. Our goals this year are obviously to sustain, our performance, if not get better, but really is to start to work on sustainability. So obviously we have this, this parent of the Nouns DAO funding us, but you can't always keep going back to the same people year after year asking for the full amount. So we're working on initiatives. And again, this is where Peter is very helpful because he's gone through this before with an org. Is how do we basically turn our fans into owners, and basically instead of going back to Nouns, utilize our entire ownership around our fanhood and what we've been talking about to grow Nouns to make it self-sustaining. So I think that's our biggest goal, is to really make progress towards that.
Thanks for coming up, and good question. In terms of helping out your students, and is it a San Diego esports program or like at the university, or?
It's at the San Diego Unified School District. So that's kindergarten through 12th. Oh,
okay, cool. Yeah, if they're doing esports, I just saw a video of like some Rocket League competition at a high school or something that was awesome. So if they have, we're kind of going through our 2024 funding and proposals, and we talked a lot about Prop House, and I think that we're doubling, if not tripling down on Prop House in this upcoming year. So we want to create, these open sort of forums for people to come in and pitch their ideas. So if there's any sort of like, leadership or some sort of internal lead over there who wants to work on a proposal and pitch it, we'd be happy to support that.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Valerie. Cool. Next we have Tony. Would love to have Tony come up and ask his question.
Hi, everyone. My name's Tony Lee from the University of Washington. I really appreciate this topic, as I've been looking at esports as a possible industry to join in the future. But I always notice that people who work full-time in this space start grassroots like you guys are doing with Nouns Esports. I know esports is an industry that's pretty volatile. So from a non-player perspective, what would you recommend for someone who's interested in pursuing a full-time opportunity in esports through Web3?
I think that you need, and this is very similar, I think, in other industries, but really sort of volunteering your time and just, hey, where can I help? How can I help? Where can I help? Just proving yourself as like a valuable community member is going to lead to opportunities. Because of our public nature of Nouns Esports, and everybody knows that we have budget to sort of spend, we get a lot of people that walk in the door saying, hey, I want to, represent you guys, pay me X dollars a month, and I'd be happy to do it. But it's like, that's not really how it starts. Like, you have to come in, create some value, and then maybe ask for compensation on the back end rather than on the front end. And you can really prove your worth before sort of, making the relationship transactional, because I think that's where you're going to lose a lot of people who are inevitably sort of tasked with taking a leap of faith on you when they don't really know that much about you.
We're set up to where you could just literally go to our Discord if you're not already in it and come to our Fridays calls, introduce yourself, listen, and then when you feel like you can contribute, just contribute. Like, there's no one's going to be stopping you. There's no like order of command and like, no, you can't talk about that, or like you can't share that. No, honestly, one of the biggest problems with running an org like ours is we need more people who want to contribute and just start to share things. And we have most of we call our pod members came in just like you, Tony. They just literally found us. I mean, Peter, technically. I mean, obviously he had he had history behind him, but other random people have come in and just started contributing it, and now they're actually on our budget sheet for 2024. So it's not something that's impossible. And I think we're the easiest way to just start getting your feet wet and say, oh yeah, I was a contributor for Nouns Esports for a year while I was at school. Like, that's huge, I feel like.
Yeah, and kind of on a tangential note, after this conversation, Brennan's going to be opening up a tavern, which we'll give more information on. But it is basically going to be a Q&A about how you can write a proposal and what goes in a proposal to be able to start pitching an idea to work with Nouns. And I think that's, broadly applicable of a framework for Nouns Esports. And so please do join us for that. Cool. Well, thank you, Tony. Let's bring up Rudy next.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me. Shout out to everyone for taking the time to kind of speak to us. I'm Rudy. I'm over here in OC, California, repping Long Beach State. Fresh out. But I did have some questions about Web3 and gaming, specifically about sort of some of the biggest challenges that you face, considering you're building esports teams and you're kind of merging two different worlds is kind of what I would consider it together. What are some of the biggest challenges that you guys are currently facing in one, building the team, but also sort of letting the world know that it's like associated with Web3?
Yeah, that's, I would say, our biggest challenge of 2022 and a lot of 2023 was changing the conversation about NFTs are scams, Web3 are scams, Nouns is probably a scam. You would go on Reddit back in the day, and anything that associated with Nouns Esports would have littered comments about all these type of things, which honestly, they're not wrong. And a lot of things that get a lot of narrative and storytelling is all about the scams, right? And there's a lot of fraudulent people out there. So we had to overload them with information about, listen, this is who we are, this is how we work. And also what's really great about Nouns is, since our only effort isn't just Nouns Esports, we could link back to all the other proposals that we funded and executed and shared, that started to see, like, when we share Nouns, people feel like, oh, these are the good guys. Like, these are the good people in this space, and it sort of helps them think about the problem in a different way. And so I think it took us literally about a year to finally change that discourse. And now you'll still see a few of those comments. They're not gone, but there's a way less of them nowadays. But yeah, it was a challenge. That was our first big challenge to overcome.
One of the other things that we like to say is we like to make crypto soft for our esport users. It's in that sense, like, we want them to not necessarily be turned off as soon as they get in, and that goes back to like what exactly Brennan was talking about. And this was something that was really, really helpful for me as somebody who wasn't really that into crypto when I first learned about their Dota team, through the lens of esports and gaming and following this team. And I began to learn, I didn't know what a DAO was, for example, when I learned about Nouns Esports. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, what's a DAO? Okay, what's a crypto? What's the difference between a fungible and non-fungible? And I just, my education just got more and more and more. I was like, I joined like random Twitter spaces and just absorbed knowledge. And it because this industry is gigantic and there's so much to learn. It really sort of like, I got addicted to, I don't know, like, sorry, I'm going crazy now, but it was really fun to learn about, because there's a lot of opportunity here. And I think that there's a lot of innovation going on in this space, whereas the rest of esports is kind of a little bit static and a little more content with the status quo. So I'd like to think that we're disrupting in a lot of ways. which is fun.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I think that actually answered my question really well, because I was going to ask, like, on the educational front, how are you sort of mass reaching out to the community that you're building? Because I think esports sort of like has, gamers in general for the most part, they're very tough demographic, right? Like anything that, an example, Pokemon just released cookies and everyone is dissecting the price points, the kind of cookies, the manufacturer, every aspect of, they're breaking down every aspect of where the cookies are coming from and really making content out of the conspiracy theories that come out of it, right? And so I think a big portion of the question kind of also hopes to address sort of, where's the educational portion of Web3 come in, considering that when you like root for a team and they happen to be a really great team. For example, I think you guys said that you made it to TI and then you also came in like 7th or 8th place, which awesome. Congratulations, by the way. That is actually super awesome. Huge achievement. And then folks come into your page for the first time and they're like, oh, wait, this is actually NFTs, or this is like Web3. Is that NFTs, right? Like, where does the educational portion of that begin for your organization? And how do you plan to sort of spread that amongst the new fans that are coming in from the traditional means of which you're participating, like these leagues, for example?
Yeah, we actually have spent time thinking about that problem, and we obviously we use traditional social media, right? Twitter, or X now, Reddit, Discord, being open to anyone who wants to join. And we've made a video reel that like highlights exactly how the Web3 influences Nouns Esports, about being basically this fundraising effort from super fans that we're all just fans of games, and we want to see teams and athletes perform at the highest caliber, and we want to give them money to do so, right? And if you haven't, you can go to Nouns Esports on Twitter right now. It's one of the highlighted reel ones. Maybe we can link it somewhere, but it's a fantastic video that actually another Nounish sub DAO worked on for us. So it's kind of cool how you can leverage all these other parts to the piece. But you're right. I mean, it's still grassroots, where people are talking about it in Discord, but I think we've gotten to the level where I don't have to be there in Reddit talking about it, or Peter in Reddit talking about it. Like, I can see Peter's comments, I can see my, Sasquatch comments. We're articulating who we are, but now we have fans doing it for us. I can see some random person, I'm obviously going to upvote all of that, but like, they're doing it for us, and that feels good. That means you're changing the momentum in your favor. So I think now and also just, we're so transparent and honest about what we want to achieve, that it's like you can do like you said, we gamers are min-maxers. We want to dissect, get into the numbers, and we give you all those up front. And you're like, hey, go find what's wrong. And they come out, they're like, oh, it's not bad. It's actually kind of cool. And that's it. Yeah.
I'll add, if you don't mind. I think that we know that we're not the bad guys. So every time that somebody says something like negative online, it's just an opportunity for us to jump in and correct them. And then there's, a majority, like, it's really the vocal minorities that like speak out against crypto and NFTs, but there's all of these people who like don't want to get in the middle of it, that, I don't have skin in the game. I don't really care that much about it. I'm not going to, fight and defend Nouns Esports, but they see the back and forth, and then soon enough they sort of understand, and all of a sudden, they're on our side, upvoting our comments and getting behind us. Another one of our goals is just making sure that people have a good first Web3 experience. Unfortunately, there was a lot of gaming projects and esport teams that, did pretty questionable like token offerings and NFT sales in 2021, which really burnt a lot of the reputation for the industry with that group, who still hasn't forgiven them. But yeah, like through Prop House, it's like, oh, I just make a proposal, I set up a wallet, they send me the money, I do the thing, I tell them about it. Like, that's a good first Web3 experience, and hopefully they tell their friends about it.
Well, thank you, Rudy. We are going to move on to our final student question from Eddie.
Hi, my name is Eddie from Garden Gamers. We're a Web3 gaming community focused on educating our community on blockchain technologies while having fun playing games together. And my question to you is, what are your recommendations for newer communities to collaborate with established communities such as Nouns Esports? And the members of Garden Gamers are primarily from the Izuki space, and we're extremely interested in working together with other communities, but haven't found much success in getting others involved.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love that. We would love for y'all to come to our Friday open Discord call, introduce yourself, Eddie, and yeah, talk about what y'all have been working on, sharing some links for us to start to follow and engage. That's the thing is we're hunting for more people like your community to join us and or come together and make partnerships. Like you said, it's actually tough. We've run into roadblockers doing outreach as well. So yeah, if you're open and your community's open, we'd love to engage. Just literally come to our Discord, join our call on Friday, and off to the races we go.
Amazing. Well, I think that's actually a great leeway into our final few minutes of this conversation. So I'm going to bring Brennan back up and have him talk a bit about the Nouns Garden Round, which is open for everyone right now. And he will share a bit more about where you can find him right after this call as he talks more about how you can write your own proposal, what goes in a proposal. And then our UETH core team member, Rachel, is going to join him and see if we can do something with building wells in Sierra Leone as a follow-up from last week's session. So I'm going to hand it over to Brennan.
So yeah, like Tina said, I think following this, there'll be a link if you haven't already screen capped it or anything to a tavern. So you can just join that. You don't have to log in. You can just be an anonymous speaker. The link is there already. And I'll be walking through pretty much how to check out the Gardener rounds. You can just connect with a wallet. You do have to have a Web3 wallet, like using something like MetaMask to log in and then create a proposal. And I'll go through all those steps. But really, I feel like this is a good opportunity for students to just, it's one of those things, just hit the ground running, like just make a proposal. It could be super silly, super stupid. Actually, those are really fun anyways, because they're just, people talk about them. They're like, oh man, what if we did do that? What if we did like completely revamp a van that looked nounish and someone just takes a road trip for a week? Like, why not? 5 ETH would make that possible. That's 10 grand right there. And that could work. So those are the type of things that actually that could actually win. This round, it's 2 winners for 5 ETH each. But yeah, so I think this is just a good opportunity for students who haven't already done so to make a proposal, interact with a DAO, and just start to engage.
Awesome. And so the tavern that he's going to open up is more or less like a Twitter Spaces type product. We're going to open that up in the next few minutes, and anyone can come in and engage with us on what a proposal looks like, how you write one, and maybe go through an example of one that we're writing right now with UETH and last week's speaker topic. But in the last few minutes, we'd love to know if you have any final words for our students, either on the topic of esports or on crypto in general and building in crypto.
Building communities is the hardest and most important task. There's a ton of people out there telling you about their amazing tech products, but you need first you have to get yourself into the market, and then you can go out and build products for it. So just be a fan, be a community member, get to know people, create relationships, and then you'll kind of figure out what exactly you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think to me, the biggest thing you can do is just keep building, keep interacting, be social, try to engage with other builders. DAOs do a really great job of forcing you to be social because you have to come to consensus, you have to come to an agreement on something, and it's a really good friendly. It can be harsh the more passion you put into a project and you really want it to pass, but it can also be very easy and soft if you do something that maybe isn't the biggest thing in the world that you want to work on, but something small that you feel like has value. It's a really easy test bed just to like throw it out there and see if it works and get your feet wet in building. So
Awesome. Well, thank you both for your time today. And thank you for everyone who joined us this evening. We are posting the link to the tavern in Discord, and you should be able to see it on our Twitter as well. So please find us there if you're interested in submitting a proposal and getting a shot at winning 5 ETH for whatever project you're excited by.